Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is the moment of the press review on this Monday, June 10, 2019. The great zoom on the political, economic and social and cultural news on Africa. On your television, Africa TV, African seen differently. In the lead up to our review, let's go to Cameroon and the daily life of Défi Actuel. On his front page, the independent newspaper refers to more than 6,000 co-projects founded in the 10 regions of the country. And the newspaper states that following the mid-term evaluation of the activities of the National Participatory Development Program, considered satisfactory by the World Bank, the coordinator of his program, Mrs. Marie-Madeleine Nga, National Coordinator of the National Participatory Development Program, reviews the actions carried out since 2016 and then reads on page 2 and 3 of your newspaper of a billing of the Bolova Akom2 Kribi Road published a Singan in its publication this Monday, June 10, 2019. The newspaper announces the Prime Minister and the 42 billion of Nganu Jumisi at a time when John Gute is fighting against roadworks surcharged in Cameroon. The Minister of Public Works is orchestrating a scandal which should be read on page 5 on the newspaper. The Daily Integration newspaper confirms that the United Nations organization has noted the phobia of dialogue in the countries of the sub-region. This leads these countries to an impasse. According to the colleague through the update figures, your newspaper proposed to read the situation in Central Africa from the point of view of the United Nations. If we stick to l'économie, 30 ideas for tax digitization are exposed in Yaoundé from June 10, 2019 to June 13. Cameroon is hosting the 34th annual conference of the cycle of reflection and exchange of leaders of tax administrations. The tax authorities are waiting to play their part in this meeting of giving and receiving. Echo Matin notes that the Minister of Finance successfully raised more than 100 billion on the black market. For this newspaper, the public issue launched on May 22 by the Minister of Finance, Louis-Paul Motaze, records a subscriptions rate of 120%. It is the percent of the two issues already completed out of the 100 billion francs CFA requested, which testifies to the receptivity of investors to these operations. In total, Cameroon is looking for a total envelope of 150 billion francs CFA on the black market to finance certain infrastructure projects. Some infrastructure projects, which should be read on page 4 of your newspaper. According to the L'Essentiel at the autonomous port of Douala, Bolloré and Maersk refused to leave. The newspaper stated that their concessions expires in December. The autonomous port has selected new operators and a short list has been made public. Bolloré and Maersk absent from the shortlist. A counter expertise will have been ordered. Bolloré and Maersk complained about manipulations. On the cover of the Cameroonian government daily newspaper, addresses to the parliament on the issues of the session. The parliamentary session for deputies and senators will resume today in Yaoundé as part of the meeting that could be the last of the current legislature for the occupants of the Glass Palace of Ngwa-Ikele, and the continuation on page 5 of the newspaper. Mutation informed us that the wounded affected were wounded, not sunk. Visiting the northwest and southwest, the Minister of Defense indicated the measures to take care of the soldiers affected at the front in these regions. Thierry Ikouti's newspaper offers a file on this subject to be read exclusively in page 5. The Pan-African Weekly presents in charts titled that Bagbo, Soro, and Me, The Confidences of Charles Begude, to read exclusively in Jeune Afrique. We are moving from the West African coast. The Burkinabe daily newspaper, L'Économiste du Faso, is interested in rock and its challenges. Who will be the Prime Minister? The real electoral machine, MPP. A successful election. A tandem UPC and CDP at the hemicycle. You will find answers in your newspaper to read exclusively. In Mali, Le Quotidien Numérique reports that the government is again extending the mandate of deputies. The continuation on page 4 of your newspaper on newsstands. In exclusivity, the bombardment of Bouaké on the front page of the newspaper Le Temps. Revelations on the hearing of Alliot-Marie. The newspaper specifies how Michel Alliot-Marie trapped before the French justice. The confidences of Charles Onana. The serious confessions of the General Poncel. We still in Ivory Coast. L'Intelligent offers an interview with the Minister of Youth Population Promotions, Youth Employment and Civic Service on Monday, June 10, 2019, and reveals that the 2 million jobs created by Ouattara are not debatable. In Nigeria, the Daily Trust on its front page informs us that I met only 1.8 billion naira. Sanusi replies Kanduji, and the newspaper states that as a reconciliation moves continue, the Emir of Kano, Malam Mohammed Sanusi, yesterday responded to the query issued to him by the Kano state government over alleged misappropriation of 3.4 billion naira. In South Africa, the daily newspaper Cape Times writes 2 schools sacrificed for hospital. The newspaper specifies that 2 Manenberg schools are preparing to make way for the new $2.4 billion Klipfontein Regional Hospital, which needs at least 7 hectares of land. The following in your newspaper. The Daily Nation in Kenya informs us that shame, revenge, law to kill SRC. Members of parliament are plotting to cripple the operations of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, which ordered them last month to refund hundreds of millions of shillings illegally paid out as house allowance. In Zimbabwe, the daily newspaper The Herald reveals that government rescues top coffee farmer, and the newspaper specifies that government has resolved the ownership dispute of a portion of Farfel Coffee Estate in Chipenji involving Mrs. Richard Levieux, a remembrance Bunzana to enable continued commercial production of the crop at the farm in the hands of the farmer. The following to read exclusively in your newspaper. Let's release this press panorama in Algeria and fencing. The daily newspaper El Vatan title focus on transition to newspaper state of the National Civil Society Conference. Read the article in Aishun, Majid Makedi, Ait Warabi, and Nabila Ami. Why does the popular movement reject, block the offer of dialogue launched by the Chief of the General Staff of the Army, Ahmed Gaid Salah, and the Head of State, Abdelkader Ben Salah? Who is this offer for? Which warm to the authority want to engage in dialogue? Is the people against this option the only alternative to get the country out of the impasse? Algerians who have been taken to the streets by the hundreds of thousands every Friday since February 22 are not against dialogue. Thank you for following us and thank you for your loyalty. It was Marie-Louise Ngome for your press review. Goodbye.